Hey, I've got a question for you today. What if you pray for healing in your life, physical healing or emotional healing, and you pray with great faith and you pray repeatedly, but God doesn't answer the prayer? Does it mean that you lack faith? Well, not necessarily. This is an error that some groups of Christians can fall into. I once met a woman who was paralyzed from the waist down. Joy Verone is her name. And it happened in a car accident, essentially. Her spinal cord had been severed. Her pastor at the time told her, Joy, if you had enough faith, you'd be healed. You just need to pray for healing, and if you had enough faith, you'd be healed. And this created a real stumbling block for Joy. For many years, she was living under false shame and false guilt that she didn't have enough faith. Now, that theology is a dangerous theology. Why? Because it's unbiblical. I believe God can still do miracles. I've seen him do miracles of healing in my life and the lives of people here in our church. But that doesn't mean we're guaranteed healing. And it doesn't mean that if he chooses not to heal, that it's evidence that we lack faith. Where do I support this from? Well, let's look back at 2 Corinthians 12. Paul the Apostle had pretty strong faith. He's one of the great heroes of the faith. For any of us to say that we have more faith than Paul the Apostle, probably not likely. But what happens here in 2 Corinthians 12 is Paul has this thorn in the flesh. It's a physical suffering that also has an emotional and spiritual suffering component to it. Paul tells us in verse 8, 3 times I begged the Lord to take it away. And ultimately, we'll see as we go into the other verses, God says, I'm not going to take it away, but I will bring good from it. So 3 times, and 3 in Hebrew is the idea of completion. You may recall Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. How many times did he say, Father, not my will, but yours be done? If there's any way, let this cup pass from me. He prayed that 3 times. So 3 is symbolic. And what Paul means, for sure, he prayed 3 literal times, but it may also be a reference that he prayed to completion. He kept praying about this, and he got this answer from God that God was going to allow it and bring good from it. So today, I just want you to know this. If you've prayed for healing and it hasn't yet happened, it doesn't mean that you don't have enough faith. Now, it's good to pray for faith, and it's good to pray for healing with faith. But we can trust God that if the healing doesn't happen, we don't need to feel ashamed, and we also shouldn't let it shake our trust in God. If he's going to allow that sickness or difficulty to continue, he'll bring some good from it. So tomorrow we'll continue on this theme here in 2 Corinthians 12. As I've mentioned the last 2 days, we'll put a link to my free audiobook on walking with God through pain and suffering. You can listen to that or share that with anyone you care about who's going through difficulty. I will see you tomorrow.